additionally, what I'll have you all do, if you have any questions, is just enter those into the chat. I'll be monitoring that throughout so we can keep track. And as always, questions are welcome. So please don't feel the need to wait until you see the question slide. You can certainly put those in the chat and I will address those as we go along. So just jumping right into our content. So our last release was back on December 22nd. We did have an early release that week just due to the holidays. So we had a smaller, shorter release on the 22nd, and I'll run through some of the things that maybe were impacting you all that were resolved within that release. We'll go through some of the known issues. I do have a Q&A slide, and then we'll also run through some of the upcoming answer hours that are relevant to this group. So just jumping right in. These are some of the issues that were resolved in the 12/22 release, and they're mostly related to annual claim forms. So there was an inability for some users to submit annual claim web forms. We were seeing incorrect dollar amounts generated on these annual claim documents, and in some instances, the incorrect party was listed. So for example, TPA maybe had filed it on behalf of one of their clients, and the incorrect party was just being listed on that document. We do have another release that is planned for the 7th, so Thursday evening. So keep an eye out. We usually try and get those release notes posted to Campus Central and sent out to you all Friday afternoons or Monday mornings. Some of the known issues that we're still having, I know some of our TPA users are still having some issues with linking to claims. We are working actively on that for those TPAs. If you have any questions about that, or if you are wondering if that is something that we are working on for your group, please feel free to either email myself or the help desk or the EDI email address, and I'll go ahead and provide that. Company name rather than adjuster name is listed on some of the generated documents. I believe that this is specifically our NLPLB document that is generated, and that's something that we have on our radar. Inactive claims are showing as open in some instances, and that's more of a kind of an educational thing. The status that you see on those is actually going to be our DLI status. So if you ever see something as open that you think should be closed or vice versa, you can always contact us if you need to upload a document or something to it. But typically, it's just going to be the DLI status, so it shouldn't impact any of your filings. The one thing it does impact is this inability to upload other filings. So when a file is marked closed, you won't see that other filings drop down. If you need to file something on those, just send us an email, send it to the help desk, let them know that that is your issue. We can reopen that file really quickly, and then you should be able to file. We also have some EDI sequencing issues. I'm not going to get into that too far right now, just because we do have an EDI answer hour next week where we'll be going through all of this in detail. I know this isn't our EDI specific group, but a lot of those are having to do with sequencing following O2s and NTs. We also still have the issue with benefits on PYs for those of you who are trying to submit a PY and getting an error on those lump sum benefit type codes. That is something that we are planning to address in an EDI release that we have planned for later in this month. Again, I know we have a communication plan to kind of talk through that a little bit for those of you who are specifically EDI users, and we'll also go into that a bit next week in our EDI answer hour. So finally, we have just our Campus Central page. I think you all are pretty familiar with this at this point. This is just where we publish kind of the things that are happening with campus. We also would publish our release notes to this website. So you should be getting a newsletter with this information, but you would also be able to find those release notes on Campus Central. So just to show you all what that looks like, I'll go ahead and I'll put that link in the chat. And you'll see here that we have release notes broken out by date. So if you click on one of these release notes links, it's going to tell you exactly what is pertinent to your situation. So we break them out by group. This is our most recent one. So you can see we did a lot for rehab providers, a lot for law firms. We did a few things for insurers, and we did some things for employers and employees. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hop back into my slides and start running through the questions. All right. So first question, we have claims in campus where there is no link to the form we created, but the form is there. If we click on the three dots, it says that we can view it. It says we are not authorized. How do we get those forms when there is no link? Very random. There will be some forms in a claim with the link and then some that aren't. Kristen, if you could just send me some examples of that. That's not an issue that I've been made aware of. So if you could just send me some examples, that would be wonderful. Notice of payments have come back without entered information on them. How can we get the payment information included? So depending on what you are submitting, we just need to make sure that that payment information is included and valid. It should be pulling into those. If you want to send an example of that my way, I can certainly take a look, Meredith. Okay, we have old claims that we've emailed DLI for the jurisdiction claim number. We then submit a FOR-UR to DLI. They're rejecting as a claim not found, even though we have submitted them with the jurisdiction claim number. So in those instances, it's possible that the worker ID number or the employee security ID isn't included. That's the most common thing that we see with those. But Becky, if you would like to send that email to the EI email address and copy myself, I can dig into those for you as well. All right. Next one, question regarding claims that were open before 10/31/2020 that we don't expect to have further indemnity activity. Do we need to file a UR? So in those instances, you wouldn't need to file the UR unless you had something else that you needed to file with us. So let's say you had one where you filed the 00 on October 1st, and then you submitted your NOPLD to us on October 15th. It was a denial. You don't have anything else that you have to do on that claim. In that instance, you wouldn't need to submit those URs. It would only be if you have additional activity that's coming up. All right. In trying to file the SX or CB, I'm getting an error on the occupational description too long, but there's nowhere on the forms to shorten the description. Linda, if you can just send me the claim numbers where you're seeing that, chances are that it might have been a little bit too long when you submitted the FOR-UR via the e-form. That's a field that doesn't get validated on the front end. So it's a really easy fix on our end. We can usually make that change for you. All right, and I think there was just a request to go back to the updates for the annual claim web form. So these are just the issues that we were having with the annual claim web forms that we've corrected in our last release. So there was an inability to submit in some instances. There were incorrect dollar amounts generated on the documents. And in some instances, the incorrect party was listed. So for instance, if a TPA filed on behalf of a client, it may display the incorrect party. So those are the issues that were corrected on the 22nd relevant to that web form. All right, next question. What do we do with a PIN you give us on a DOB SSN rejection? Where do we enter that? So if you are trying to submit with a PIN that was provided by the department, you should enter A in DN 270. So that is going to be your employee ID qualifier, I believe is the name. Employee ID type qualifier is the name of that data element. So if you do A in that one, which is just assigned by jurisdiction, you would then enter that PIN number in DN 154, and that's just going to be the, I can't remember the exact wording for it, but it's DN 154. And let me just look up the exact name for that really quickly. That would only be in instances where you're having to report using that provided PIN. And that one is called, it's the employee ID assigned by jurisdiction, DN 154. All right. I'm receiving new document notifications, but not only for our TPA group, but for our carrier and our co-located client group. We are not receiving email notification of any service of these same documents to our secured website. However, can you clarify why this is occurring? John, I will have to look into that a little bit more offline, just to see how you all are set up. It could be something with the email addresses and how they're set up. I don't believe there's any issues surrounding service right now, so it may just be a simple cleanup. Where do we add the WID number on a FROI UR? So the WID number is going to be DN 206, and that's called the Employee Security ID. So if you're filing EDI, it would be in the field that says Employee Security ID. And then if you're filing the e-form, it would just be in the WID field. All right, follow up to the FROI UR question. Do we need to file a final on those claims? So Janet, if I'm understanding correctly, you are wondering if you would need to file a final on something that everything was reported prior to campus. I'm not sure if we have anybody from compliance on. I think John might be on. I believe that the answer to that is no, that you wouldn't need to file a final if you had concluded everything prior to campus and you're not sending those URs. All right. If we have a claim appropriately filed in campus and have subsequently filed a denial, do we need to file a final when we close our claim? So John, I believe the answer to that is yes. I'll need to defer to compliance on that one, so I will take a note down just to follow up with them. Let me see if I've got anybody from compliance who could potentially answer that question. It looks like I don't have the compliance folks for EDI on this call, so I can follow up with them and get that information. We can make sure to include that in the newsletter this week for you all as well. And I think Meredith, you had the same question, so definitely we'll get that answered by compliance. All right, when completing a SURE UR on a denied claim, which was litigated and no payments, how do you go about doing this where there were no payments on the claim until the award order comes through? So you can file your SURE UR. You can file your SURE UR without benefits or payments. And then what you would do is then file your PY. After your settlement comes through, on that PY, you would just want to show in the benefits segment the total amounts for that settlement. Usually it's going to be paid as a 500 benefit or an unspecified lump sum settlement. And then you would also want to report the payments. So if you were needing to report a payment to the employee and a payment to the attorney, you would just list two payments. You'd put the amounts in for the checks that were sent to those individuals, indicate what kind of benefit it was, the date range, and who it was paid to, and then you should be all good. Oh, and John, I just saw your message regarding the TPA issues, so I see you sent me an email, so I'll take a look at that. All right, NLPLD and NOID were done prior to campus. We got an MMI with 0% PPD and uploaded it to campus. We are now done with the claim. Do I need to file the FN? I will confirm with compliance, but I don't believe you would need to file your FN since we already would have all of that concluded prior to campus and you hadn't filed your URs. In that instance, if you did file that FN, you would have to submit your FROI UR and then your SHORE UR and then your FN. So I will verify just all of those situations where a final would be required with our compliance unit. If I file an NOPLD showing a return to work date, do I also need to file a NOID? So if you filed the NOPLD and there was no paid lost time, you would just want to indicate, obviously in your NOPLD equivalent narrative, that there was no lost time beyond the waiting period. And that would then put the return to work dates in there. And then that would indicate to us that the claim had no payable lost time. What you could do rather than a NOID is submit a narrative transaction, which is an NT, and just indicate no lost time beyond the waiting period, just if you missed that on your NOPLD for some reason. You would only need to file the NOID if you had paid benefits and then you were suspending them. So an SX would be the equivalent in EDI that you'd be filing, and that replaces the NOID. And again, only would need to submit that if you had ongoing benefits that you needed to suspend on the claim. All right, so right now I'm not seeing any additional questions. I'll keep an eye on the chat, but I'm gonna go ahead and just go through our activities for January. So as of right now, we obviously have this answer hour that we are currently in. We have a law firm and a rehab answer hour also planned for this week. So if either of those groups are pertinent to you or anybody who works for your company, please feel free to pass those along. Next Tuesday, we will have an insurer, TPA, and trading partner group admin half answer hour. So that'll just be the standard 30 minutes. We're keeping that one on the schedule by the request of that group. So that'll just be a 30-minute one for group administrators. Additionally, next Wednesday, we have an eForm trading partner answer hour, and then we also have an EDI trading partner answer hour. So feel free to just attend either one of those that's relevant to you, or if you want to pass that information along to somebody else in your organization, that would be great as well. We will also plan to get answer hours out for the week of the 18th. So we do have a state holiday on the 18th, just so you all are aware. As long as this group wants to continue these answer hours, I'd love to just get some feedback in the chat. I can plan on scheduling another one for the 20th, and then we will plan to kind of keep these at bi-weekly intervals. And I'm just going to jump back into the chat here. It looks like we've gotten a couple questions. When are penalties going to become relevant? How much are the penalties and what issues will be subject to penalties? So I will have to defer that to our compliance unit as well. I don't have the authority to speak on penalties. I don't have penalty authority. So I will go ahead and put an email address in the chat. So if you want to actually just email our help desk, they can either email directly or forward your ticket directly to compliance. Otherwise, I'll put the EDI email as well. All right, next question. If we get an award for payment of attorney fees that are withheld, how do we report this award? Same for RORA fees. So what you could do with that is you could just submit a PY, indicate the payment information. So you're going to want to add a payment showing who you're paying, the from and through dates, the total, and then the reason for the payment. If it is a situation where it's withheld attorney's fees, you would want to indicate in the benefits segment what benefits you were withholding those attorney fees from. if it's something for RORAS fees, I believe that those would be reported as an other benefit type under legal expenses. So that is how you would be able to report them. So you'd want a payment segment, and then you'd also want either that benefit segment or the other benefit segment. Is the suspension for NOID 3 fixed, or are we still to be uploading our NOID documents? Yes, the discontinuance web form is a functional, so you should be able to utilize that discontinuance web form. Okay, on a legacy claim, if a FROI is filed, I need to file a NOID number 1. What forms are required? So in that instance, we would have needed the FROI insurer URs if it was a legacy claim and you had done the NLPLB prior to campus go live. We would need FROI insurer URs. After that SURE UR, you could file the FX or suspension transaction. If it was a situation where you did not file your NLPLB prior to campus go live, we would need the FROI UR. Then we would need either the IP or the EP equivalent, depending on how you're paying those benefits, and then you would file that suspension. So it just kind of depends on if you filed that NLPLB before 11/2, or if that equivalent wasn't filed until after 11/2. A PY has been accepted for benefits paid per the decision in order. I need to mail a copy to the employee and the attorneys. The resulting PY document didn't populate the benefits. Kathy, if you can send me a copy of that, just so I can look at that claim and see what was reported. In that instance, it should be okay for you to just take the old NOBP form and complete that and send it out. But I definitely want to make sure that there isn't an error with that form. Okay, we are getting errors for SURE URs rejecting after a FROI UR has been filed. The rejection is saying the UR is required first, but the FROI UR has already been accepted. So in those instances, it's usually a match data issue. Sometimes it may be a sequencing issue as well. So Stephen, if you want to send me just a few examples or send those to the EDI email, we can dig into those for you and see exactly what's happening. Has there been any further discussion on increasing the amount of time before campus times out? Bridget, I know that that's something that we have in our feedback. I believe that that is an IT security requirement. So I can't really speak to that one. I don't think that Brad is on. He may have some additional insight on that one. At this time, I don't believe that we have anything in the pipeline that would increase the timeout, but I know that we do have that feedback logged as something to investigate. So I can take a look at that as well and see if we can possibly provide some additional context. When was the email sent with next week's training links? I believe that that would have been sent the week before last. I can check in my email and see exactly when that was sent out. It's my understanding that they all would have been sent out at the same time. So I can take a look and confirm with my communications department when that was sent out. Okay, I've noticed many times when I'm searching for a claim by the claim number or even the JCN, it returns with no results. Then if I try it later, I will find it. Sometimes I have to put in leading zeros and sometimes I don't. Bridget, can you elaborate on the data tables where you're seeing that? It's possible that the claim may be closed on our end. If that's the case, if you check the include inactive checkbox on that queue, it should give you more results. On a legacy claim, the FROI UR was filed, the SURE UR was filed, and I tried to file the suspension, which rejected, indicating a sequence error. Deb, if you can send an email to our EDI team, they can take a look at that sequencing error, just include the jurisdiction claim number. And I'm seeing sure you are, the same thing, getting that error with the suspension. So if you are having trouble with that, please send an email to our EDI team and they can investigate. Linda, thank you so much for sharing that date. So that email would have gone out on the 23rd. And Bridget, I see you said that they are new claims. If you want to just email a couple examples, I can certainly take a look at those and see why they maybe wouldn't be popping up for you. And Jenny, thank you so much for putting that link. So Jenny added just a link that has a full list of our answer hours. So I'll go ahead and just pull that up. And I believe that if you click on these, it should give you, should just download the ICS file, I believe. Or it might give you the ability to download the ICS file. If for some reason you have issues with these invites, I know we've had a couple people that have had some issues with those, please just email our help desk and they can usually forward the event to you. Right now, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. I did just want to get some feedback, like I said earlier. If this is something that you all would like to continue as far as answer hours, we do plan to continue them at bi-weekly intervals. So if you all think that these are helpful and you'd like us to continue, any feedback you have in the chat would be helpful so we know how to schedule them. And with that, I will go ahead and end a little early today, give you guys about 30 minutes back in your day. So for anybody who needs to follow up, please just send those emails to either myself or the EDI email. I will go ahead and get the questions regarding penalties and finals over to our compliance unit just so they can potentially add something to our newsletter for the week. And I'm sure that I will speak with many of you or interact with many of you next week on our EDI and eForm answer hours. Thank you all so much for attending today. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day and great rest of your week.